Welcome to episode 21 of Lost in Translation with Bobby Martin. I'm Sam Perkins, coming to you from the WCTV studios in Wilmington. As always, Bobby, we are really getting on a roll with these things. I think it's feeling pretty good to me. How about you?
We are back, and this feels good. This is awesome.
We are joined today by Brandeis University head men's basketball coach Jean Bain, former player at my alma mater, Northeastern University, much more acclaimed than myself. Bobby also spent some time as a coach at Northeastern, so we've got a whole Northeastern connection going on here, although none of us were at the school at the same time.
6 degrees of separation, right? Go Huskies, go Huskies.
Welcome, Jean. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure being here, knowing both of you guys for a long time. So this was an easy thing for me to do, come down here.
We appreciate you being here. Go Judges, right?
Yeah,
Go
definitely.
Judges. Go Judges.
So, Jean, you know, your journey to me, it hits very close to home. You're a Medford kid. I'm a Cambridge kid. I think at a certain level, there's a rivalry when you're from a city in the Boston area, but also when you get out into the world, there's much more of an affinity when you see someone that comes from the surrounding Boston area cities, like really make it and have success. You always kind of root for each other, unless you're playing against each other in something. But like, what would you just say overall about your journey through with basketball? I mean, did you ever expect that you would stay connected? Like when you were a kid, little kid, if you can think back, did you think that you would stay connected in this way with the sport for this long?
Yeah, it's funny. Bobby and I were talking earlier before we started. It's just, basketball has always been a passion, a love of mine ever since I picked up the ball. I think I was 9, 10 years old. And, it was just something that always got me through whatever I was going through. Going down the park or going to the gym or working out, whatever it may be. I saw a future, whether it was a coach or trying to play after, I saw that basketball was always going to be part of my life. Because, I equate sports with life because a lot of things you go through in sports, you have to tackle in life. So it was easy for me with my background, coming from where I came from, that, that I'm going to need the game of basketball. So, I always thought, somehow, some way, I was going to be doing this for a long time.
Tell me about growing up in Medford. Like, how did you first get connected with the game of basketball? Tell me about just who you grew up with and why hoops.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Cambridge because I lived in Cambridge when I'm originally from Haiti. I came here when I was 8 years old. My family, we lived in Cambridge, right next to the 3 Towers over there for years. And then, once I started high school, my aunt lived in Medford. And my parents wanted to kind of get a little bit more situated. So we ended up moving to Medford with them. And, I got introduced to basketball early by my brother, just by following him around and playing. And then when I got to Medford, there was a great system in place with Tom Rise, who was the head basketball coach, who's actually from Andover, Massachusetts. So he kind of got me serious about the game. I think at that point, you're trying to figure out what you want to do in terms of the future when you're a freshman, in terms of what sport you want to kind of go towards. And, he was the one person that got me really serious about the game and told me, hey, if you do A, B, and C, you got a chance to be pretty good, but it's going to take a lot of work. So he started me on that journey by, teaching and coaching me on the court, off the court. He's also like a father figure to me. So, once I got a chance to, learn from him, I then applied myself to the game 100%. You talk about now working out. I mean, I'd get up at 6 a.m, go down the park, work out for a couple of hours, go home, go lift weights, then go play pickup at nights at the, local courts. So it just became something that I just did every single day. Never took a day off. From then on, I knew I wanted to play college basketball, and I didn't know what level, because, the way AAU basketball is now, obviously the exposure these kids get, it's a little different. So, so I was trying to figure out, how good could I really be? And, I remember Coach Raja was saying, you're a Division I player, He just instilled that confidence in me and that mindset that, you know, even though you're 5'10", everybody's telling you too small.
Right.
You know, it's not about that. It's about, you know, how much you want it, how tough you are. So I just instilled that mindset in myself, and I just dedicated myself to the game. And I always say I'm self-made. I didn't, you know, I wasn't the guy that had a 44-inch vertical. You know, I was quick, but I wasn't the quickest. I didn't have the greatest shot, but I could shoot. But my mindset was always different than everybody because of a lot of things I went through in life coming over here. So I try to instill those things into my daily habits, and, you know, made myself a Division I player at the end of the day.
That is awesome. You know, one thing I heard you saying was that you had been through so much, but you had someone outside of your family to actually mentor you. Coach Rise?
Mm-hmm. Coach
Right?
Riser.
So Coach Riser.
Yep.
Okay. So, you know, what message would you give the kids? Because what I'm hearing is you know, you're always working. You're always working. You didn't take off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you rested, of course, but you
Mhm.
didn't take off.
No.
So, you know, what I try to do is I try to tell the kids there's a difference between price and cost.
Mm-hmm.
The price of playing is, okay, yeah, you got to get up and you got to work out. But the cost is you always have to do it. There's no end line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, and this is what I heard from you. What
Mhm.
what advice would you give these young players?
It's sacrifices you got to make. You know, I think now everybody wants everything right now. Like, at a young age, they want the car, they want the social life, they want everything, right? But the thing that Coach Riser instilled in us early was, you know, you're going to have those things later in life.
Mm-hmm.
But right now is the time to put everything you have in the game, in your academics, and focus on that. For example, you know, with guys on my team, you know, Friday night was a big, you know, night. Everybody goes out and you get together. I never did those things in high school. You know, those are the sacrifices. I was down the park. And that's the honest truth. I know kids nowadays say, "Nah, coach, you weren't doing that."
Mm-hmm.
It's the truth. We didn't have iPads, we didn't have cell phones,
Right.
right? Didn't have cable. So those are the type of sacrifices. You know, Saturdays and Sundays, everybody want to go to the beach. Now I'm going to the courts. I'm going to play in the tournament in Cambridge or in Boston to continue to get better, because he always said, if you're not working on your game, somebody else is. And if you want that scholarship, well, if they're working on their game, you're not, well, they're going to get that scholarship. So I think that mindset that he instilled in me early just stuck with me for the rest of my life. And I apply that today in coaching, because I feel like if I'm not working, if I'm not recruiting, if I'm not on the phone, then, you know, other people, you know, are working me. So I think it's very important to develop that mindset early. If that's something that you want to do, if that's your goal, then you're going to have to sacrifice to pay the ultimate price to get there.
What was it like, the immigrating here from Haiti, you know, as an 8-year-old? Because you're old enough at that point to get used to a certain life, a
Yep.
certain language, you know, a certain day-to-day routine, and then to go to a completely different country. I'm always, you know, blown away by people that immigrate here, and not just here, but like, you know, you see it here because this is where I live, you know, to go to a completely different country where a completely different language and, you know, culture and all this stuff, like to just, it's a huge risk.
Yep.
And it's a huge undertaking. So what was that experience like for you when the whole process of moving from one country to another?
Yeah, it was challenging because, you know, how my family situation started. Well, my parents came here first,
Mhm.
and they left us in Haiti with our aunts and uncles to go to school. So they came here to try to establish themselves and kind of get themselves off the ground. And then after that, then they brought us over here.
Mhm.
And then, you know, it's an adjustment. You know, I didn't speak English. You know,
So what was it patois or
Creole?
Creole? It was
Yeah,
Creole.
yeah, it's
Okay.
a dialect
All
of
right.
French,
Okay.
kind of very
Gotcha.
similar. So, you know, now you're talking about I'm going to school and I have no idea what people are, like, no idea. I'm on the bus, no idea what people are saying, or I can't understand the language. You know, we had some translators at the school that I went to in Cambridge. I went to the Martin Luther King
I was going to ask.
Junior High School in Cambridge. And, you know, we had some good teachers that did a good job of slowly bringing me along as far as the language barrier. But, you know, outside of the classroom, you know, it was challenging. It was challenging in terms of making friends and trying to figure things out. So it took some time for me to adjust to it. It took some time for my entire family to adjust to it because my parents didn't speak English either. So
I've got a question. So when you're angry at your players, do you find yourself cursing them out in Creole?
No, not at all. Not at all. Early in my career when I was an assistant, maybe. But nowadays, we don't.
Well, at least in your mind.
Yeah, and possibly in my mind.
All right.
Possibly in my mind. Possibly in my mind. But yeah, that was a big adjustment for us. Going to school, going to the doctor, everything that you did, you had to figure out, is there somebody there that can help us understand what they're saying, what we need to do? So, we figured it out. I think, to the questions you guys asked earlier, all those things kind of prepared me to go on and do what I did in the game of basketball because it was always a challenge. Always a challenge.
How long do you think it took you to become at least conversational in English and be able to understand what your classmates were saying, what was going on around you, and were there any things that really helped?
Yeah, good question.
Because I've always struggled with foreign languages, and it's learning in school and all that sort of stuff, and I want my kids to speak other languages. I think it's tremendously beneficial. But like for you, like how long did that process take of being able to at least understand, if not all the nuances and all, like just be conversational and was there anything that helped?
Yeah, that's a great question. There were two things that helped. It was cartoons. I watched a ton of cartoons, and I used to try to follow to understand.
Yep.
And then I read the sports page. It sounds crazy, but my uncle, who had been here for a long time, was kind of a mentor to our family. He would always stop by the house because he lived down the street from us. He would always bring the newspaper. And, I just knew that I'd go through the paper. I'd see a guy dribbling a ball or baseball, and I would take that section and I would try to read it. Whatever I could read, those two things really helped my development. And it took about a year before I could really function and understand the language properly. I still had a strong accent, but yeah, it took about a year for me to get through all that stuff.
That is amazing because that's the same process I followed when I was in Spain. It was either cartoons because I had seen the cartoon in English. And, when you watch so many of them, you remember what they're saying, or you can, through the actions of the cartoon, you can, figure it out.
Exactly.
And the sports page was everything.
Sports page was everything.
I'm like, oh, okay, that word looks familiar. All right. So, and it took me about a year to really have a conversation with somebody and understand what they were saying.
Exactly.
Actually saying, wow, that's crazy.
I'm gonna try and get my son to watch all the cartoons that I watch. My oldest, I have two, but the baby, it doesn't really understand even English right now. I mean, he does, but he's pretty limited. So, but get my oldest Jack to watch the cartoons that he's always watching over and over again in another language. So the AAU scene obviously very different. Bobby and I have talked about it. That from when, so you're a little bit older than me. Your senior year of college was my senior year of high school. So we were, but it was still, I would assume for you, the same for me, that when AAU, when I was at that age, it was very limited. It was very select. One, you didn't get the hype or the publicity. There wasn't YouTube, there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't any of that stuff. But also it was you really had to be good to make a team.
Exactly.
And now there are teams for everybody. Some teams are great. Some teams are just money grabs, all that sort of stuff. But how has the AAU scene changed? And what did you have to do to get exposure and get teams to notice you when you were coming up and AAU was not the animal that it is today?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned. I mean, growing up in Boston, I think we had 4 AAU teams. We had BABC.
Yeah.
We had
MABC. Were they there then? MABC?
No, they weren't around.
Okay.
The Wildcats out of Wilmington.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
That was 2. Then we had the New Bedford Buddies, who I played for, out of New Bedford. And then we had I can't remember the 4th. But anyways, those were the 4 teams. Yeah. Okay. And they had a tryout for, except BABC. BABC was selected.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't need to have.
They didn't need to have a child.
If they came to you, you're like, oh yeah.
They came to you. So, and the buddies we were selected, but everybody else you tried out. So, the numbers were limited, and coaches didn't travel with 11, 12 guys.
Yeah,
Right.
Coaches travel with 7, maybe 8
Maybe
guys,
8,
maybe
yeah.
8, because you knew who your top guys were. So you had to be on top of your game to try to get some exposure, right, by getting on one of these teams and try to develop your game and get better. Where now it's like every town's got 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 AAU teams. So it's definitely a little bit different. So the thing that I did was it was a balance. My high school coach played at UConn, so he'd gone through the process of the recruiting process. So he understood that you don't want to just play AAU all summer and not work on your skills.
Right.
Because, you're traveling all summer. How many shots are you really getting up in the AAU game as an individual player?
Yeah.
What do they say? The time you spend on the court, most of the time you spend on the court, you'll be passing the ball.
Right?
Right? So
Right.
how many looks you going to get?
How many looks you going to get?
Yeah.
And then how many times from a conditioning standpoint are you going to play 25, 30 minutes? Even if you're the best player, you're probably not playing that. So, he did a great job of making sure that I balanced that, because I used to select the events we would go to, because there wasn't as many events like we have now.
Yeah.
So there was the nationals, the New England state championships. It was a big deal.
Yep.
So you would kind of select the events you want to go to, and then you would spend the other times playing with your high school team, because that was a big thing that we did in Medford, where we played together all summer.
Yeah.
And whether it leagues, we go to camps together.
Yeah.
So for me personally, it was just a balance of it, and I try to talk to kids about that now. I said, you don't have to go to every single event. You could still get exposure, because if you're good, they're going to find you, especially nowadays. So you can still do all those things, but you also got to make sure you're working on your craft, your footwork, your shooting, all those things you're not getting every single day in AAU. Now, in AAU, obviously, you get the exposure. And you get to travel, you get to, meet different people, which I think is extremely important. But I think if you want to get better and develop into the best player you could possibly be, you got to make sure you balance that out.
So how do you balance that? Because right now what I see is social media, and okay, you're saying that you have to divide. You divided your time with your high school team and choosing which tournaments to go to.
Right.
But now all you have are highlight reels. Okay, so how much time are you spending actually working on your game? Because for me, for Sam, for you, I'm sure working on your game meant there was no one around.
There was no one around.
You were just busting your butt, mad at yourself, and for not accomplishing something, and just looking for some type of guidance. Personally, I don't see that guidance now.
Yep.
Because what I'm looking at is most of the time the help that those kids need isn't the help of wanting to work.
Right.
There's something else missing.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that yet.
Yeah. I think what plays a little bit of hand, and I've seen it just growing up around here, like you, Sam, is if you're a really good player in the public schools, you don't stay.
Yep.
They recruit you. So now you're at a prep school where it's a little different. You don't develop that camaraderie with teammates, because it's 90% of these prep school, everybody's from different parts of the country. Right. Whereas if you're high school, we're all from the same town.
Yeah.
We're all, hey, let's go work out, Bubba. Let's go work out, Sam.
Yes.
So I think you're missing a little bit of that. And I don't, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but
no, be negative. Be negative.
The thing I've always fought with the state, I've always thought about with the state of Massachusetts, they don't allow coaches to work with their kids in the offseason.
Yeah, that's crazy to me, because so many other states, they can do that. They can coach the kids in off-season tournaments, leagues, everything. And I think that, I'm not saying the only reason, like we're a smaller state, but like Massachusetts has good athletes. But the player development, it's not there compared to other states. And I think it has to do with the fact that like the kids aren't getting year-round support from the same people. You're changing for, if you've got money or you're lucky enough to be, really stand out at a young age, you can find trainers to work with you, or you can pay for it. But like you're changing, season to season, high school, AAU,
Yeah.
fall league, which you can't, or late summer league, which your head coach can't coach. So,
Yeah.
and that continuity, I think, is really big.
Nah, it's huge. It's huge because, my first experience in being an assistant coach, I remember going out to Texas to recruit, and I get there, they're working out at 6 a.m. and I get there and they're doing a whole team practice, and the coach is involved. And afterwards, I said, Coach, because I don't know the rules of Texas.
What kind of rules?
Yeah.
Y'all
I
got
just
out there,
I just
Coach?
know the rules in Massachusetts. It's like, nah, Coach, we get to work with our kids year round.
Yeah.
So then lunchtime, I go to another workout. Lunchtime, they got to practice. They set a block where you practice. So, and then you go outside, you see the football team, they're practicing. So now, you look at the top 50 players in the country in football and basketball, they're from the state of Texas. They're from Florida.
Right.
Because the coaches get to have their hands and impact the kids. And most importantly, build the relationships.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was working at the NCAA camp last week in Memphis, and there were a ton of high school coaches from public schools. And one of the things they comment about, we can't build the relationships that we want with our kids. So that's why when they get to a certain point, they end up transferring.
Yeah.
Because we just can't be on the court with them. If they're playing pickup, I can't be in the gym.
Right.
So, I think that's why if you look at the public schools in Massachusetts, basketball has really gone down.
Yep.
As a coach, we want to recruit everybody, but I mean, there are times I'm searching to try to recruit local kids because I want to, because I'm in Waltham, I'm in Boston. So I think that part of it's really changed.
What I remember being an athlete, and I played multiple sports, and then baseball wound up being my top sport at college, professionally after college, but across sports, the three that I played, for me at least, and maybe it's gotten, I think it's still kind of the same. I know that the AAU scene's gotten bigger, so there's more structure for kids. But you kind of, if you really want to get good in Massachusetts, have to be prepared to be lonely while you're getting good. Because there was a lot of time, me by myself or me with my dad. I was fortunate enough to have a very involved dad, but he didn't make me go out there. He just was real. My dad played out at UMass. He was a phenomenal athlete throughout. He was playing in these college leagues when he was in his 40s. And I was a little kid in the Boston area, back when there used to be legit college leagues in the Boston area.
Right.
And he just was real with me and said, look, he was 6'7". I'm 5'8" and change, and he was real. He's like, you don't have my size. It's not going to happen. I don't see that happening. You're not going to ever be the biggest. There's always going to be people that are just more gifted than you. If you really want this, I can't want it for you. And you're going to have to outwork it, people. So which means being out there all the time. And it's up to you. It's left up to me. And I took him up on that. And he would, anytime I wanted to go to the park, the field, he'd go out, he'd work me out. So I was fortunate to have some continuity and always having him in my life. And that's one of the reasons why my athletic career, I think, really fell off the face of the earth after he died, was because there was something missing. But there was a lot of lonely time for me in the sense of being alone, getting better, because there wasn't that year-round structure, because it wasn't allowed. Where are you going to get that? For the most part, you're going to get that the high school team you play on. That's where you work. You spend the most time together 5 days a week during the season. Off season, you get some lifts in and stuff as a team.
Right.
And if you're not allowed to have the coach that's kind of holding everything together, everybody goes their separate way in the summer, in the fall, and so, I think you have to be prepared to have a lot of time alone and be very self-motivated for all kids, but especially in Massachusetts because of the way that it's set up.
Yeah.
I think that probably works in a couple of ways, because my grandmother was Haitian also.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So she used to always tell me, when you mentioned being alone, it reminded me of her. She told me from a young age, boy, you better learn how to be a loner. Okay.
Yeah,
I remember you telling me that quote.
Right. And I remembered it. And I remember my boys going out and, they're doing whatever they're doing, smoking, doing whatever, or drinking. And like you said earlier, I'm at the court.
Yep.
I'm alone, but it gave me time to figure, man, I'm really not that good.
Right.
And I've got to deal with myself. Right.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with yourself and you're looking in that mirror, it becomes so tough.
Yeah.
Because you start realizing I'm human. Oh my gosh. Maybe I didn't say to myself I was human, but I said, no, I'm not that good.
Right.
I can't hit this shot. So now I'm going looking for my high school JV coach at the time. Hey, Mr. Barksdale, come in. You got to help me out. He said, okay, young fella, you want it, huh? I said, no, I want it. So he would help, and I'd go back and be alone, and I'd keep fighting. This is amazing, man, how many similarities.
No, just to touch point on both, great points, because if you want, like we talked about earlier, you want something bad, you got to go get it. So it's funny to me when guys go, I'll call a guy and say, hey, you get shots up today. You're working. Man, coach, I couldn't find nobody to get me shots. I said, what?
I need somebody to rebound for me.
I said, what?
You get your cardio and getting your own rebound if you're a shooter, man.
And that's what I did. I remember going down the park, but I'm like, just chasing the ball down, rolling it, working on my footwork, working on my dribble, going to get the ball. I never once in my life coming out had anybody work me out, except my high school coach during the season, because that was the time they were allowed. Yeah. So when I hear that from kids nowadays, and I just inside I laugh.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you really want it, you got to go get it. Like you said, your dad told you that you had to do something different because you're not going to be 6'7", right? So they told me I wasn't going to be 6'2". If I want it, I got to go get it.
Yeah, and it's just one little aside is I want to make sure that I acknowledge how fortunate and some people might call it blessed, or I'll just call it privileged, I was to have the dad that I had. I lost him as a teenager, but I had him up until that point, and how involved he was in my life. It made a huge difference where it's, we're going to 20 years this fall that I will have lived longer without him than with him. But I was so lucky to have had him for the time that I had him, because, and that doesn't make the hurt go away or anything like that. But I can be aware that there were so many friends, kids, talented people in both athletics and just in life that were very gifted that didn't have that kind of support system growing up that I had. So it gave me a big advantage. So that's just an aside. One thing that you made me think of, and for both you guys, but Jean, because you grew up in the same area I did, just a little bit ahead. But when I was growing up, from the time that I was a little kid watching, my dad and the older kids you look up to playing, and then through high school myself, there was a huge pickup scene around the Boston area. You talk about in Cambridge, whether it's Ringe Ave when you're younger, the Ringe Ave courts, the Patrick Ewing courts down by the river. I think that Corporal Burns is the name of them, but I call them the Patrick Ewing courts because that's where he learned how to play. The Fenway area over in Boston, like there was pickup everywhere, and I get depressed driving around anywhere I drive around, whether it's Wilmington here, Lowell, where I live now. Rare occurrences I get back into Cambridge. Courts are just empty, man. And I remember you having to wait hours to get on, like your nighttime under the lights. Like I feel like what it lacked in structure, you need structure, you need actual development time, but there's also something to be said for being a teenager and having a grown man with his grown man strength just bullying you on the court. And it's, there's a level of toughness you have to develop. And I just feel I don't see kids playing pickup ball anymore. And I feel like they're missing something. Yeah, man. It's funny you bring that up. My brother and I grew up the same way, like you and like you guys playing around the park. We talk about it all the time. I mean, there's literally nobody in these parks. And I think part of it is, like you guys said, the access that these young people have these days in terms of being able to get a trainer, the AAU. So now you don't have many kids around for the summer. Everybody's traveling, right? So I think all those things go hand in hand. But I think the biggest part is kids don't want to play in the pavement. They don't want to play outside anymore. Everybody's afraid to get hurt. I'll never forget this. That's what turned me to a different player was when I started playing on the park. I had a friend that took a liking to me. To this day, we're still friends. His name is Tom Blanchard. He lives in Waltham. I remember going down the park. I think I was a freshman in high school. And I show up, there's like 40 dudes there in Malden, Mass. Because, Medford Malden's right there. Lights. They're playing from 5 to 10 at night. Right? And I get there and I'm like, yo, I got winners. Dudes looked at me like, get out of here. Because I got there early. I was like the first person at the park, right? They're like, nah, man, you got next game. I kept hearing, you got next. Finally, some guy took my ball and just kicked it in the park.
Oh, right? Man, one of those. Huh?
Right? Kicked it. Said, get out of here, kid. And I said, what? So my buddy Tommy, I met him down the park. He said, man, just keep coming, keep coming. And I just kept coming to the point where I would always get the last game of the night where everybody was done, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody's like, nobody wants to play, but I'm playing my hardest. I'm competing. And then I just kept getting better to the point where by the time I was a sophomore, every time I showed out, I was the first pick.
Yeah.
So there's something that, to be said for that. Playing against bigger, older people that, I think it builds character. I think it builds toughness, mental toughness and physical toughness, which you need. So for me, that was a big part of my game. I don't think I would have been the player I was if I didn't go through those trials and tribulations of playing down the park every single night and having people not, let me go to the basket, lay it in. I go home with bruises.
Yes.
But it was just how we did it. It helped me. It helped me in the classroom as well. Just that that mentality of just, man, if these guys are telling you, you don't belong, I'm just gonna try to outwork everybody.
Well, so what I hear is that what you had to develop through tough times, you had to learn how, and I'm saying this is purposely being said. You learn that your feelings, while they are relevant, they're not always reliable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because you actually had to fight through those feelings to actually reach another level.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And as far as, the kids now, you had mentioned them getting trainers. When you're playing outside, your body is going to adapt to the surface that you're playing on.
Absolutely.
So you didn't get all those injuries back. These kids get hurt at such young levels. We played on some nasty stuff,
man, nasty.
And now, I'm watching as I'm training kids. I'm looking at them, and some of the things I see, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, we got to start from point zero. This is nuts.
Yep.
You'll never survive,
right?
Because once they find athletes who are naturally better than they are, it's over.
It's over. No, you're 100% correct, man. Yeah. To me, it's just like you guys said, just playing 5-on-5, even playing 5-on-5 indoors is not as prevalent as it was back then, because now everybody's, they watch LeBron, they watch KD, they watch CP3. They're dudes doing stuff in the half court, working on, but they don't understand, like those guys have done that. They've already been through that process. Right. So I think, it goes hand in hand with, like you say, guys get to the next level, they get hurt very easily because they're not used to that.
So what was the recruiting process like for you when it came time that, you were instilled, you had the people telling you kind of like, hey, you can be a D1 athlete. You always knew you wanted to play. You wound up at Northeastern. I assume you were recruited by Rudy because he was there before Ron.
Yep.
But what was that process like, and why did you choose Northeastern?
It's a funny story. I think we talked earlier. My senior year in high school, I get up. We're playing the state tournament. We're playing the North Finals against South Boston. I'll never forget it. We had about 4 Division I players in that team. They're loaded. And I get up in the morning. My mom says, "Your neck is swollen." I said, "Yeah, I just been lifting. I ain't lifting weight. During the season, I ain't lift no weight." So, make a long story short, I go to the hospital and I get up. I get my neck checked. I had to take a biopsy. Next thing you know, they come in and tell me I got non-lymphoma Hodgkin's. Yeah. So after hearing that news, my recruiting then became on the back burner because I had to, get healthy, figure out what's the next step. So I went from getting recruited, 30 offers, people, because I didn't make a decision because I still had to go get my SATs correct. So the phone stopped ringing. Like literally, the phone stopped ringing. So I'm like, man, I just worked 4 years, did everything I needed to do in the classroom, on the court. And yet, right now, I got nothing. This is my senior year. So my high school coach, being the guy that he is, reached out to some prep schools. And next thing you know, I'm at Bridgeton Academy.
Okay.
I had to take a year off, go through treatment, get stronger and bigger. I'm at Bridgeton Academy. I think I break the scoring record, the assist record. That summer before I went there, Northeastern had just reached out to kind of see where things are at. So I get up there and I just tear it up, man. And Jay Young, who's not a head coach at Fairfield, stayed in touch with me the whole summer. You know, just checking in on me, just, hey man, how you doing, man? Like, you good? How's treatment going? No other school was doing it. So
Jay's a good dude.
Dre's my guy. He's my guy. So I committed. I said, you know what, man, I don't even care about playing games at prep school before. I'm just gonna commit to these guys because they just been loyal, and that's how I was raised. So as we play the season, man, obviously I have a hell of a year. You know, I got like 25 schools calling me, and hey, you committed? You signed it because you had to wait to sign the letter of intent. You know, they're calling my coach. So, you know, again, I'm a lawyer guy, man, and I just stayed with Northeastern because, you know, Jay primarily was just there for me when I was going through a time where, you know, I had nothing. I had nothing when it came to scholarships, coaches calling me. He was the one guy, my high school coach, obviously, in my support system. He was the one guy that was there for me, so I just stuck with that.
Going back, your senior year of high school, you get diagnosed and then you had to take a year off. Like, what was that like being, you know, nobody thinks when they're in high school they're going to get diagnosed with cancer.
Yep.
And just what was that process like? I mean, my wife, we were talking, is going through it now, and luckily she's on the other side of it, and nothing ever prepares you for it. But especially when you're a high school kid and you think about like what was on your mind in high school for, you know, what was that experience?
I was like, you know what? I was like, it was my senior year. I was like, man, great high school career. You know, broke every record here. I'm like, man, I'm gonna enjoy my spring. I'm gonna go to the prom. That was my mindset before all that, right? Then that happens, and then I'm like, I got to take a step back and figure out, you know, what I need to do to keep pushing forward. I think the biggest thing that we talked about earlier was the fact that the people around me never allowed me to get down or feel sorry for myself. They never allowed, especially my brother. I'll never forget it, man. There was an all-star game, it was big back then. It was, you know, I had gotten the diagnosis already, and my brother was taking me to the game, and I get in the car, man. I think I was bawling, crying, just like, you know how you say, why me? Everybody else goes through that. And my brother looked at me and said, man, you better wake up. This is life. You got something thrown at you. Now we got to figure it out. We're going to be here for you. We got to figure out how we're going to get you through this mentally. And from then on, my mindset just changed. I went to that game. I played like it was my last game. So I think everything that I went through in 8th grade, 7th grade, high school prepared me for that because nothing was ever easy. You know, I had to learn English. I never played basketball before I got here. I had to learn how to play basketball. I had to learn how to get along with people socially. So I think all those things just prepared me from a mindset standpoint. Like, listen, this happens. You know, this happens to a lot of people. You know, it just so happened to you. So, you know, I think, you know, Coach Reiser again was just unbelievable in saying, listen, you're gonna get through this. You're gonna still reach your goals. But right now, you gotta focus on getting better. And I think once I heard those words, it just allowed me to then continue to keep pushing forward. Nobody ever allowed me to feel bad for myself and sorry for myself. I think that was a big thing in me getting through it. And it's not, you know, it's not easy. It's a tough thing for everybody to go to individually, but it's tougher on the people around, your family, your friends.
Right.
Because, you know, they care about you, they're worried about you. And I think it's more stressful on them than it is on you if you have the right mindset. Yeah.
I listen to Sam, you know, we get a chance to talk sometimes. And, I can hear the pain in his voice, you know, because his wife's going through this. And, you know, it's interesting. You had mentioned mindset. It was Carol Dweck who wrote a great book, you know, called Mindset. And she talked about, you know, growth goals, you know, instead of the other, you know, the regular goals that we always set ourselves up for failure, you know, why did this happen, you know, whatever. Yep. But she talked about growth goals, that being the main catalyst for any development, you know, and through the whole process, you know, I've had a chance to talk to Sam and listen to him, and I can hear the growth in his voice. I can see his demeanor changing, not because it's any less painful,
Right.
but because he's learned how to grow through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what we're looking at today is, and I'm hearing you're diagnosed with cancer, your wife is diagnosed with cancer. Now, all of a sudden, this is saying, okay, well, what's important to me?
Yeah.
How do I get through this? Because you have to be strong enough to change your mindset. And as any doctor would tell you, your mindset is going to have a huge effect
Mm-hmm.
on your health.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking chemical reactions right now in your body. And going back to basketball, when we look at these kids and they can't handle a minimum amount of adversity.
Yeah.
Kids, how the hell do y'all make it?
Yeah.
You won't ever make it. I'm sitting here with two people, one diagnosed with cancer, the other, his wife is diagnosed with cancer, and you think you got problems?
Yeah. Yeah.
To wake up. Oh my God.
And just to piggyback on that, like I was listening to Sam, and I could visualize kind of what my mom, my dad, everybody was going through. It was, but the other thing that made me realize that, hey man, you got to wake up, is my first trip to Children's Hospital. My first, I'll never forget. I walk in and you see all these young people, man. They got more serious things going on. And I think that visually made me understand that I'm lucky. Even though I'm in a situation that these people are going to fight the worst. There's 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, man. So it's, it's tough, man. Like life is tough. And I think, like you mentioned, like kids nowadays, I mean, sometimes they don't understand that. They don't understand that. You're going to have to go through some type of adversity, some type of obstacle to get to where you want to get to. But you got to keep pushing. You got to keep pushing.
We, as a kid, when we got selected to the McDonald's game, they had us go visit the Ronald McDonald House, where, you see a lot of kids with a lot of problems. Yeah. And I am painfully saying this, that I didn't realize what I was looking at. I just went in there to be nice and, whatever. But, now that, I'm older and, as I got older, you realize what effect they were trying to make. I wish they would have told us.
Yeah.
Right. Guys, this is what you're looking at. You don't understand how fortunate you are. Yeah. But it feels like it was more of a PR. All these kids, they represent, the game and this, that, and the other. And we were never challenged on our thought processes, And I wish they would have done that, because I'm listening to you guys' story and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, I didn't get it when I was in high school. It took me, I didn't have the wake up call that you had on just, don't take a day for granted and always be aware of that there are things bigger than yourself going on. Exactly. When you got to college, did you play 3 years for Rudy?
Or I played 3 for Rudy. Okay. Yeah.
So what was your college experience like? What would you say about your time at Northeastern? I still, when I go to campus, I have a hard time getting into the city a lot of the time. It's very hard for me to go to Cambridge just because, I loved growing up there. I loved the experiences I had. I think if I had grown up somewhere else, I wouldn't be the same person that I am today. At the time, I didn't appreciate it, but I do now. But it's just hard for me because there's such a feeling of like loss. Both my parents are gone.
Absolutely.
But I still, when I go to Northeastern, I don't have those feelings. I have really great feelings, even though it's changed. I go by Punter's Pub and I feel sad because it's boarded up. I go by where the Pizzeria Uno used to be and I feel sad because that's gone.
Yep.
And now I go by Chicken Lou's and I feel sad because that's gone.
Yeah, that's gone.
Chicken Lou's is gone?
Chicken Lou's, he retired,
man.
He retired. It's just empty there. It makes me sad that, but Northeastern itself, I have a great feeling. I'll go into campus. I go in there so much more than I go to Cambridge just to kind of walk around sometimes. During my wife's surgery, because it was supposed to be a 6-hour surgery, it wound up being like a 10-hour surgery. I walked from Beth Israel over to Northeastern, walked around the campus. The coaching staff was there. I have a good relationship with the current coaching staff. Hung out with them, with like Brian McDonald and Manny Adako. And but I just walked around. I spent a lot of time just walking around campus, and it still always feels good to me. But what were your experiences like at Northeast? What would you say about your time as an athlete, as a student?
Man, I had my buddies and I that we play with, we talk about it all the time. We had a great experience. The only thing that we wish we won more, we got a chance to go to the NCAA tournament, but we got a chance to make, lifelong friends and go through a lot of tough times that prepared us to be all successful in our lives now. A lot of my former teammates are doing really well. Marcus Blossom, who, is the athletic director at Creighton.
Yeah.
Harold Miller was a superintendent in school in Boston. We have so many guys doing so many positive things that I think a lot of the stuff that we went through on the court, off the court, prepared us to get to these situations. So I wouldn't change anything. Like I said, I wish, we won a little bit more. But other than that, man, I had a great time. Made a lifelong, lasting friendships, not just with athletes, just, students I would have never come in contact with had I not gone to Northeastern. That taught me something different than what I was used to. Overall, man, I had a great experience.
It was such an interesting mix of guys that you played with. You kind of bridged the gap between your first 3 years under Rudy, your last year under Ron and Frank. And I always say Ron and Frank because Ron was the head coach, but Frank was kind of running the show almost to a degree there. But you just think about the different guys that were there, Marcus Bloss, and what he's doing. Yeah, Jesse Dunn as a walk-on who's been a success. He's been able to support himself in the music industry for like more than a decade, which is crazy in this day and age. You had Toby Britton, incredible talent, just all different guys. And then you look at that league when you were there, and there was legit. I mean, the America East today, I would say the talent isn't the same as then. And I think it's because you were able to fly under the radar. But you were there when Speedy was there, right?
Speedy was
there at the beginning of your career, the end of your career. You had Taylor Coppenrath and TJ Sorrentine and all the BU guys that were young. Matt Turner, the most freakish athlete I've ever seen.
Agreed.
Austin Ganley at UNH.
Andy Bedard at Maine.
Andy Bedard at Maine. What was the league like, and what was your experiences like playing?
Oh man, it was it was totally what I expected as far as going to Division I school. It was, every single night you had to understand that you're not the king of the matchup. Coming from high school and prep school, I knew every single night I step on the court, I'm better than anybody. Well, in college, man, you got to bring it every day in practice because that guy's trying to take my minutes, and I'm trying to take his minutes. So it's friendly competition as teammates, but we both want to play. So it wasn't just so much the league; it was just so much, the preparation, the way you approach the game on the court, off the court, mentally trying to prepare yourself night in, night out. To go against these good players. Like everything had to be done right. Pre-game meal, make sure you get off your feet, shoot around. So the college game was brand new to me my first year because I had never gone through it. So once I became used to that preparation, I think I made the most of it. But nowadays, you try to tell young kids there's so much more to go and just being one of the individual.
How do you deal with? You had mentioned earlier that when you were diagnosed, you went from 20 offers to 0 contact.
Zero.
Right?
Zero.
A lot of these kids, now that you're a head coach, how do you deal with once you see the kid just won't cut it, whether he can't get into Brandeis because of grades, right? Or they're just not good enough. There's a better option.
Yep.
How do you ease off from the kid? Because the kids are all gung-ho. They're ready to commit.
They're ready to commit,
right? That's got to be difficult.
It is difficult. It's very difficult. But the one thing that I've learned is I got to be honest and upfront. I know it might not be something you want to hear, right? I might have to call and say, listen, we're going to go in a different direction. I know we've been recruiting you, but we evaluated you we don't think you fit what we do, obviously. And we don't know if we can get you academically. I don't think you can get in. Right. So I think you have to be willing to have those tough conversations. And I know going through, I'm sure you probably went through it, or maybe not, you were a McDonald's All-American. So, what I'm saying? So everybody was calling you, right? But I think me going through the recruiting process as a player and having coaches kind of go the opposite way of not telling me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to then say, when I become a head coach, I want to be upfront with that kid and let him know.
Right.
So at least now he can have time to look for other options.
Mm-hmm.
I think and sometimes people don't like it, believe it or
Right.
not. They don't like it. But at least I'm laying all the cards on the table and I'm letting you know that, hey, this isn't going to work out. You know, it's not, you just haven't done enough. And I think, nowadays people don't want to hear that. They want to tell you how great you are and how good you are. And,
Have there been any kids that have been like, look, you're making a mistake? Continue recruiting me?
No, you know what? We haven't had that.
No? Okay.
But a couple of parents have said that.
Couple
you know,
parents.
right? But that's the norm. It comes with the job, So yeah, I think just being upfront and honest with them and letting them know, hey, this is who we see you to be. If that's not who we see, we're gonna let you know as a staff.
Right.
So I think we've had success doing it that way.
What was it like having a coaching change before your senior year? You have you had the head coach you played for 3 years. You had Jay as an assistant. I'm not sure how long he was. I can't remember my timeline. How long he was at Northeastern? Within 2 years.
I think so. Yeah.
So that was probably a blow when he left. If you had developed that relationship,
Mhm.
anyways. But you deal with a coaching change your senior year. Very different styles, I think, and just a coach coming in who didn't recruit you. A lot of the time, I understand when coaches inherit players that, they're like, oh, well, I haven't put in the same commitment. I don't have But I really don't like what I see the trend of a lot of coaches, which is they come in and they'll look at running out and inherited players a lot of the time. It really bothers me that they don't. It's like if your job is based on talent assessment, personality assessment, why don't you assess some of the guys that, they weren't recruited by you. They were there before you, but like come in, see what they're all about and really give an honest chance because they've, so a lot of them have put in a lot for that school already.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that isn't there. And I just, the way that some coaches will come in and will try and run players out that they didn't recruit, even good players, good kids.
Yep.
What was it like for you when that coaching change happened? And do you think if you played today with the portal the way it is, the fact that you can be eligible immediately, when you were playing, you have 1 year left of eligibility, you'd have to sit out a year to play a year somewhere else. That could be a big deterrent.
Absolutely.
Let me add something to that question. I just want to ask. So along with what Sam just asked, college basketball is still a business.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're walking in with those kids, I would use Deion Sanders for that example, where he's like, I got Louis coming, okay? Right? And you see that, okay, this kid just isn't good enough. I've got X amount of year contract.
Yeah.
I got to get rid of the dead weight.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And nothing personal against the kid, but
Mhm.
maybe they're not. Maybe they're not what you want.
Right.
How do you differentiate?
I think at that level, to answer Sam's question, the college game now has changed from student athlete with the NIL to business.
Yeah.
So I think the mindset, like a Deion mindset, is like, man, they hired me to win. Some of you guys are getting paid, or most of you guys are getting paid. So if you're not cutting it, I gotta go with the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that when I was coming up and playing, or when you were coming up and playing. I think because the mindset in terms of the game, college basketball has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
The coach's mindset now has to shift. Hey, some coaches not getting 5 years to change the program anymore. You might get 2 because now you got the transfer portal. I mean, you could basically assemble your team.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are doing that. So I think that's a little different, right? I think with my situation, to answer your question, was I love playing for Ronnie and Frank. The reason being is those guys came in and their mindset was they were honest and upfront.
Is this Frank Martin we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was Ron Everhart's assistant.
Okay.
There was-
those two together?
Oh my God. Yeah. There was no like, hey man, it was like, hey man, this is what we need from you. And I think, I knew I appreciated that. That's how my high school coach was. If you weren't any good, he'd let you know.
Mm-hmm.
You could either put your head down and go in the corner, or you could say, you know what, I'm gonna respond. And that's what I enjoyed playing for those guys. I still have a relationship with Frank and Ron. So, for me personally, and I can't,
Yeah.
It's for everybody else. I knew I appreciated that, and it made me a better person. It made me a better coach down the line, because I just always thought honesty and hard work and nobody's gonna hand you anything, and trying to do the right things. I always thought that was the key to having success. And those guys, that's what they brought, and that's why I think Frank, and Ronnie's second year program, Jose Barrera,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So but you gotta have. It's all about and I had to go through this as a young coach. It's all about recruiting the right guys that have your mindset and your vision. Because you can recruit talent, but if they don't have that mindset and vision, you're not going to get anywhere. But they got to have that. So I think that's what those guys ended up doing down the line.
Is there anyone that stands out if I ask, like, who do you think was your most talented? I'm not saying had the best career, but talented teammate at Northeastern. Is there anyone that jumps out at you?
That's a good question. I gotta think about it. Most talented was Ricky Cranford. Ricky Cranford, man. He was 6'6", New York City. He went to St. Louis, transferred to us. He averaged 22 a game his junior year.
Yeah.
He was a guy that I thought could play at the next level if he just didn't have that total mindset. He just didn't have that work ethic. He got by on everything, on his size and his skill. But if he had put in the work, I really thought he was a guy that could take off and play overseas, make a lot of money, or have a chance to play at the in the NBA for a couple of years.
Yeah, you look at some of the guys that were there before. I mean, everyone knows Frank and Ron was the recruiter, but like JJ Barea got there, goes on to NBA career. Yeah. Nobody thought he was going to do that in college, other than JJ. But, But because he's like my height. But you had him, you had Aaron Davis, who's a tremendous talent who came in and whose son is now about to embark on his Division I career. Aaron Davis' son. Aaron Davis is going to be a freshman at Bryant University this year on the team.
Oh shoot! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's full circle. But like you had Q Randall was talented, but I don't think he ever used up his eligibility. Like he was there for I think 1 year. Frank and Ron. Yep. Toby Britton, I always think was an incredible talent based on who he was in high school, but obviously there was a lot going on there. But yeah, I always forget about Ricky was there, because I don't think that maybe he played out his eligibility.
He did. And his senior year with Ron, he didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
They weren't up to speed.
Yeah. So your final game, I was there for your final game as a senior in high school. So I was looking at some of the schools and everything, tournament game, Matthews Arena.
Oh, yeah.
BU, crosstown rival, in the America East tournament, and then it's over. Do you remember what you felt when your career, this is going back a long ways, came to an end?
I remember.
What was that experience like? And then did you start thinking about next steps?
Yeah. I remember walking off the court, man, like Dennis Wolf, great coach, great team, man. They played a triangle in two. You don't see that in college, but no, it worked. We couldn't figure out what he wanted to do. But no, I remember going in the locker room and Coach Everhart talked, giving us a spiel, and then I sat in the shower for like a good hour with the water just dripping all over me, because now I'm like, man, this could be it. And this is something that I've done the last 8-9 years. This has been part of my life. So now my mind shifts to what am I going to do next? I was a good student. I was going to get my degree. That wasn't ever a question. But did I want to play after, or did I want to coach? I knew it was going to be one of those two things right away. So just had the shower of my head, man, for a good hour. Then, we went out as a team after later that night, and then everything kind of fell into place once I started to kind of figure out what I wanted to do along those lines.
Did you know right away? Did you make the decision of coaching?
Yeah, I know. I actually had an opportunity to play in France, and you know how it was back then with the whole overseas thing. If you didn't have a good agent, if you didn't have somebody leading you, man, things get a little fishy. And I kind of sensed that with my situation. And I said, you know what, man, I'm not gonna go over there and just chance it. It's the first time in my life. I think I regretted it a little bit by not pushing forward for that challenge, but it worked out because I got into high school coaching with Coach Reiser at Medford and got a chance to go through that for a couple of years before I got into the college game. So it ended up working for me, but I wish I would have pursued that that, but you can't have any regrets. You got to push forward.
Where did you coach? What was your first college stop coaching?
At WPI with Chris Bartley, who was an assistant at Medford when I played. So again, the mindset, right? He had the same mindset as I did, as Coach Reiser did. So it was like the perfect starting point for me as a coach.
Did you go from WPI to UNH, or was
I did?
Okay. So when you're an assistant at Medford, an assistant at WPI,
yeah, for 1 year.
You must have been working a 9 to 5 on top of that, because you don't make enough as an assistant at those at those stops to
you don't.
And I know that you're not inherently wealthy on your own, so you must have been doing. So what are you doing during in addition to that?
Those 2 years of Medford, I was a permanent substitute teacher.
Okay.
So I did that, and then at WPI again, I worked at a youth program with kids that had all different type of issues, from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Then I went right to WPI, and it was like clockwork, man. So I did those 2 things. I mean, they didn't pay a lot of money,
right.
but
it kept me afloat.
It kept me afloat. Try to figure things out. But I knew I wanted to, coach at the Division I level as well. So I just knew I had to put my time in here and grind it out, and then figure the rest out.
Was it hard? So, because when my career came to an end, and I was still young, I was in my 20s, figuring it out, I went and was an assistant teacher at Arlington High School, different high school than Cambridge, but right next door. And I'm not even going back to my old high school, but I'm still feeling at times man, I haven't accomplished. I'm back in high school. I thought I was going to be doing bigger things.
Yep.
Was it hard for you to go back to the town, the high school coach, as be in the school system?
Yeah.
Right after college, was that ever hard for you?
That's
to be
a great
back
question.
There?
Yeah, it was at the beginning. I was like, man, I thought I did all those things to not come back here. Not in a bad way, but just to go pursue other things. And it was hard. It was hard, but I knew what the goal was. I always kept in mind the perspective of, I got to do this now to reach my goal. Right. So I think having that mindset helped me, of just coming in every day, doing what I need to do, working with the kids, trying to get them better. Because the one thing we talk about in Medford is when we play was having pride. So I had pride in the program because I had played there, and my high school coach was still coaching. So I wanted to help them win, but I wanted to help him, as much as I can. So, I think if it was another coach, another program might have been a little different, a little weirder, but having to go back there and being from there, I got a lot of love from there. So it made the transition a little easier for me.
So when I didn't make the NBA and I had to go overseas, it took me the longest period of time to actually be proud of playing in Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, because it wasn't, you always thinking to yourself, oh, it's not good enough.
Right.
Man,
exactly.
I should have. I thought I would be somewhere else. And then you turn around and you look at it and be like, man, all of that. Wow. I actually did that.
Yeah.
So I can actually claim and be proud of, okay, no, I didn't make the NBA, but I got the best out of it that I could.
Absolutely.
I worked my butt off.
Absolutely.
And what I'm hearing from you two is that, we call it a grind, but there's I don't know if this is a word, Sam. You could look at a stick-to-itiveness.
I like it. If it's not, it is now.
That you have to keep fighting, right? Because anywhere you go, you're still going to take yourself with you, right? So if you can't work through that, you'll never be happy. That's what I'm hearing from you.
You're right. You're 100% correct. And I think the mindset is different nowadays, right? Because I feel like young people and even adults, everybody wants everything now. There's no process. There's no steps. And I see it in the coaching world with young coaches coming up. Everybody wants to go right to the Division I level. There's a process, a step to it. You know what I mean? That you have to make sure that, one, you know what you're doing. It's not just about getting there.
Right.
It's about knowing what you're doing as well. Like working out, workouts, recruiting, film, all the things that go into coaching. It's not just, I'm going to jump into it. You got to learn the game. You got to learn the process. Then when you get there, you can now help young people get better by the stuff that you learned. So I see it now. Everybody wants the big job, and you know, but they're not willing to put in the work and go and work to get there.
You know, I tell kids that all the time, you know, when they talk about wanting to be recruited. And I said, dude, you don't understand. The guys you want to be recruited by, they've right.
Yeah.
I remember Calipari telling me,
Yeah,
you know, there's 4 coaches in a room, 2 of them are sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true. It's true though. It's true.
Right.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
you think you're gonna walk up in there and think they're gonna recruit you, and you have shown no ability to be coached?
Yep.
Right.
It's so true, man. I hear that all the time from coaches, man. I was like, I remember one coach telling me their budget was so low that, you know, they would find a hotel that they knew a friend was staying at, and they would sleep in the lobby.
Yes.
You know, just to go on a recruiting trip. You know,
Yes.
those are the things that, you know, you have to go through to get to where you really want to end up.
I'm sure Frank Martin could give us a couple of
Oh, he could.
right.
He could. He definitely could.
So you went from WPI to UNH. Now you're at the Division I level, and Bill, you had the Bill Harriet experience.
Yeah.
Bill
Bill's-
wound up being there for a very long time.
Yep.
You guys are there. UNH has never really accomplished anything before you guys get up there, even though they had talent. I mean, Austin Ganley is one of the best athletes I've ever seen at that level.
Yep.
And they had him and Chris Brown as seniors at the same time. You know, but they never really did anything up there.
Yeah.
You guys bring in a bunch of talent by UNH standards, certainly at that level.
Yeah.
That freshman class of Dane DeLegro, Alvin Abreu, Tyrone Conley. You know, the Eric Gilchrist was a JUCO transfer, but was in like a lot of talent.
Yeah,
you guys kind of changed the trajectory. And what was that experience like there? And then you go to Dartmouth, and what kind of led you to Brandeis?
Yeah, it was. I mean, working for Billy was great, man. I talked to him last week. Again, you know, Billy had been in the league at Drexel. I think his winning percentage in the American East, take out East Carolina, I think it was like 79%.
Yeah.
So they really lost, you know. I think he knew what the league was all about. And I thought he did a great job at UNH because there's so many different things that go with winning. It's not just the basketball piece.
Right.
If you're not getting the support from the administration, and if their goal is not to be the best, it's gonna always be hard to win, right? And I thought Billy did a tremendous job at UNH. I thought we set the standards. I mean, Billy had, I think, back-to-back 21 season. That's never been done at UNH. So that was, for me, again, not the cream of the crop, right? Not the school most kids want to go to at Division I level, right?
It's cold.
So again, I got it. You know, we're facing a challenge, and I thought by UNH's standing, I think we overachieved. And then same thing at Dartmouth. I go to Dartmouth. Dartmouth's not the sexy girl in the Ivy League. You know, it's HYPP. Everybody knows that. And we get to Dartmouth, and we get to a postseason tournament. Paul Cormier is a great coach in the NBA, coach at Fairfield. So, you know, I got a chance to learn from some great coaches. And that allowed me then to pursue what I wanted to pursue, which is being a head coach. After Dartmouth, I went to Columbia for 2. And I thought after that, I was ready to be a head coach. And, you know, being from this area and Brandeis being the university that it is academically and being in the league that it's in, I thought it was the best combination of athletics and basketball. I mean, at this Division III level, our league's the best league. There's no...
Yeah, I heard you guys travel well.
It's crazy. Like, if you
do.
look at where all the teams are, like on a map of the country, and you're like, oh, these Division III schools you think of, it's crazy the travel that's involved.
Yeah, it's you get to play major cities. You know, you catch a flight out of Logan, and you stay in nice hotels. But the quality of kids you're able to recruit is really, really good because, you know, we have some borderline kids that, you know, they thought, like you said, they thought they should have been a Division I player, but just things didn't just work out. But now they want the best academic institution. Yeah. So then our league, schools from our league are able to swoop in and take those kids. And there's some terrific coaches in the league as well. So for me, I thought that if I wanted to coach Division III and get my start there, that is a perfect situation for me because the combination of the academics and the athletics.
When I went into, when I saw, because I Brandeis play a couple years ago, was, you know, shots and practices, games, all that sort of stuff. Like, I went in there and was like, this is like the first practice I was at. You had some guys 6'8", jumping, like It's like this division, like there are definitely guys on your roster that have the talent to have been a Division I
Oh,
player.
no question about it. There's no doubt about it. And again, it comes back to mindset. So some of those guys that do fall through the crack just don't have that mindset. They do have the physical ability. They do have the other things. So we're lucky enough to have some terrific players, but terrific young men. This is year 5 for me, I believe. And it's the first time I've had all my guys since I've been there. With COVID impacted a lot, changed a lot. So I'm very fortunate to be the head coach there. I'm very fortunate to coach the kids that I coach, but I'm very fortunate to be in the league and the university that I'm at. So I don't take that for granted. And I tell that to my guys every single day. You walk in here, you know how many kids want to be in your position?
Right.
Forget basketball. You know how many kids would love to go to a university like this and get the education you're getting? I try to tell them, don't ever lose perspective of that, even though you're here to play basketball.
What's your relationship with your women's coach?
Kara and I are very cordial.
Good.
She's, never had an issue with her. I know there's some things that came out, some things I'm not alluded to comment on because I don't know the entire story. But she was there for 30 years, and it's kind of unfortunate what happened recently. So I'm gonna wait to kind of get some more information like everybody else before I can kind of digest and the whole situation.
The question I have for you, because I don't know the experiences, I don't know what it's like, but I'm at least aware enough, and my wife has really opened my eyes more so to, even though I was aware, I think, growing up, but seeing day in, day out my wife's experiences as an African American in this country. But you hear about and you see statistically how many Black American or African Americans, people of African descent in general, are playing college hoops at the Division I level versus what percentage of head coaches are Black. And it's very disproportionate. And it's there's no way to say race doesn't factor into this and racial bias doesn't factor into this when you go, it's a sport that's played so much by African Americans, but yet they're not getting hired to be the head guy as the coach. Like there's no way around that's bias. If you have this many people that are involved as athletes at the top level of the sport, they would have the lived experience, the knowledge of the game, the passion for the game to be head coaches, yet they're not. And all the staffs, or so many staffs you always hear about, they want to have the Black assistant who is the recruiter, the player coach. What were your experiences like as a Black coach, and how did that impact your ability? You have broken through and have your own program, but so many talented Black coaches do not get to that point. They're always just stuck as the recruiter or the player coach on the team, or the guy who can relate, and I should put quotes on all of these because it's such nonsense, but it is unfortunately the society we live in. Just what has the experience as a Black, like there are certain experiences that every coach, no matter what, will experience as far as struggles, recruiting, living on the road, when you start off not getting paid, you're barely making a living wage. But there's other stuff that white coaches don't experience. So what has your experience been like?
My experience so far has been, it's I would say it's been up and down. Like, I think when you start early and you're young, you don't really pay attention to that, right? When I started, I was,
hungry.
Because I'm hungry. And I was a player, and I figured, hey, man, like, these guys know I played at this level. They know who I am. They know what kind of person I am, how hard I work. Sometimes you figure you work hard, you know the game, you gonna get an opportunity. But for most of us, we just don't get those same opportunities. And I think where it starts at the top. Some of these administrations, man. Like, a lot of these people with administrations, there's a connection between who they hire. And I would say, I don't know the percentage, I would say 8 out of 10 times it's a person of, it's a white person that's in charge. And, then the African Americans don't get the opportunity because of that. So, I think a lot of it starts at the top at some of these universities. And there's so many really good coaches out there, African American coaches, that I've gotten a chance to know for as 15 years as being an assistant. There's so many guys I met that we talk basketball, we talk recruiting, we just talk coaching, leadership, just different. Everybody has a different way of doing things. So you're trying to learn. There's so many great guys out there that, a lot of times, man, when I see certain guys get jobs and those guys don't get those opportunities, it makes me shake my head and say, wow, this is real.
Man.
This is real.
I'm still, as old as I am now, I'm still struggling to answer that question, Sam, because I had a chance to play for Team USA, and when I stepped out on that floor, we're playing against Ginobili and all the other guys, like Tournament of Americas. We won a gold medal, but when I went out there, we were all Americans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you come back and you see the hypocrisy. Now all of a sudden I'm an African American.
Yeah.
Dude, how the hell did it change that quickly?
Yeah.
What are you saying? Now I've got to say I'm this, but meanwhile, if I'm defending the country, now I'm just American.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get it.
It's our country's history is we're going to say, hey, do it for your country as long as you're out there sacrificing.
Yeah.
But when you come back home, you're black or brown. It's like, no, you're not.
Exactly. I'm an other.
Yeah.
Right? Something else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's there's a hyphen on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's you're 100% correct. But it's not just college, man. It's not just college basketball. You see it at other places as well. It's just, it just baffles me a lot. My coaching friends and I talk about it all the time, and just not getting those opportunities because, as an African American coach, I don't want you to hire me just because I'm African American, right? I want you to hire me because I'm good in what I'm at. And like I said, there's a lot of really good African American coaches out there. They just don't have anybody opening up that door for them to get the opportunity to show that they can coach and lead, right? They just don't have it. And I think that has to change.
That's why I love Tubby and Sampson and guys like that.
Yep.
Especially Tubby. I watched him not take any shit.
Yeah. Yep.
I watched John Thompson not take
exactly.
anything.
Exactly.
And then people were so angry with him, but I understood what he was doing. For us, he was our hero.
Yep.
He was the first one that told us, he said, look, gentlemen, this is a business.
Yep.
That Nike you're wearing right now, that is a business.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So govern yourselves accordingly.
Yep.
Get what you can get, handle yourselves the right way, and keep fighting. I love that he fought for AI.
Yeah.
It was so good to watch a black man who was the hero of many, stand up to, what they used to call the man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's funny you bring
amazing,
that up. I feel like right now in the stage of, because I think there's so much money involved in the game now. But I think Coach Thompson stood for something more than that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was young, man, like I wanted to go to Georgetown.
Yeah.
Like I watched Allen, I was like, I want to go play for that guy, right? Because he just has certain passion and awe about him that his players, no matter what, they all love them. So I think we're missing a little bit of that in our game today. Like, who's that one person that has the influence? You have to make sure you're able to have that influence as well. Who's that one person that's going to stand out and try to move this thing forward and help these coaches out?
Well, it's tough because you're in a position where you have to represent the university.
Yep.
And you want to. You've worked so hard to get to that position.
Exactly.
That you can't say what you want to say because you'll be fired in a heartbeat because the university doesn't agree with your beliefs.
100% correct.
So, maybe it's someone who's not in that position, to basically be the mouthpiece for coaches that are.
Yeah.
You mentioned the university and being from, and one thing about Brandeis, I mean, they play in a tremendous Division III conference, and they also have the distinction of being a historically Jewish university. It's not exclusive to Jewish fans. I'd assume most of your roster is not Jewish, just based on the demographics of basketball and based on the demographics in this country. I myself am mom's Jewish. We make up like 2% of the U.S. But is there anything unique or different about it working at a Jewish university or a historically Jewish university?
That's a good question, honestly. And my players, we talk about this too, because no. I'm gonna say that's never been brought. Oh, coach, it's just like, coach, I'm at a great university. There's definitely some things that in terms of the holidays and that we recognize that you become a little bit aware of where you're at. But when it comes to just everyday life, on the court, off the court, it's just like a normal day for us. As far as that goes.
Well, so I'm thinking as a player, what I would probably be saying to myself is, yo, I'm at a Jewish university. I'm gonna be all right.
I'm gonna be all right.
All I gotta do is apply myself.
Exactly.
Because this place is, this place is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Right?
It's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. And then, and our guys, to their credit, man, they do a great job. They're very involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
We had a young man, an Orthodox Jewish young man on our team last year, who was terrific in terms of teaching us, about the culture and the religion a little bit deeper than what we've known. So my guys were going to temple, right? My guys were going as a team.
Yeah.
And then they would talk about how much they enjoy it. So I think that having that young man on our team last year taught us a lot. Can't travel on Fridays, can't play on like all those sacrifices open up our guys' eyes in terms of, that part of it. Last year was the first time that we had that. And I thought it was a great experience. Young man, name is Jesse Spear. He's actually he's in Israel right now on an internship. He's actually going to go to NYU next year in a business program that he got into. But he did so much for our program in terms of just teaching us a little bit more about everything that we assume, but we don't know, right? I thought that was great for us.
So, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I know we could go all day, but I know everybody has their things they need to get off to. But Jean, one thing that I do want to ask you is, so you've been 5 years. You guys have had success. You've nationally ranked. Now you've got your own players in. Do you know what your longer term goal is in hoops, or what your goal 5 more years from now might be?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think at this stage in my life, now that I'm married, it becomes more than just about me. So when I start thinking about the process of my long-term goals, I have to think about my wife. So now, it's a little bit more difficult for me to say, I want to go here. I just kind of take it day by day because I love what I do and I really enjoy it. Going in the office every day for me is not work. Going on the court every day is like, they're like, how was work? I was like, work. I said, I'm coaching basketball, right? I'm trying to help these young men grow as leaders. So to answer your question, I love where I'm at. I really do. My wife works in Boston. Her family's from up here. My family's from up here. So, trying to think that far ahead is a little bit harder. When I was single, I'd be like, oh man, if I get this job, I want to, I want to work. I want to get the next job because I was the only one impacted. But now you have to start thinking about the people that really matter and the people that help you get to where you want to get to.
Wisdom.
Yeah, I think that's a really great mindset. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize, and I now that I'm older, I don't know what it's like to be a coach at the college level, but I have some perspective. I've seen, I've talked. I think a lot of people are constantly chasing like the D1 dream, the D1 dream. I remember talking to Will Brown, who was Albany's coach when his stuff came to an end. And, and Will just took the job at St. Rose as the head women's coach there, which is Division II. But I was really talking like, have you thought about D3? Because maybe you don't have the prestige of D1. You don't have the top end salary of, I'm not going to compare D3 to Kentucky, but you compare D3 to like low D1, American East level. So the head coach top salary isn't quite the same, but like there's a quality of life to being able to coach at a Division III. Like it's really, it isn't quite the same grind of being on, you have to go on the road and recruit, but it's not. And I think it's not like there's no pressure with your job, but it's a little different. Yeah. It's not necessarily about like, how many NCAAs are you getting to, or we're going to get you out of there? It's like, are you running a good program? Do you have good players coming in? Are they graduating? Are they doing good things for the school while they're here, the community while they're here? To me, it seems like, I feel like if I say, oh, it's a great gig, that it seems like I'm downplaying how hard it is, but because it's very hard. But like the pros, it seems like there's a lot of pros that I think a lot of young coaches that are getting into this that just have like D1 or bust mindset don't really realize that how great things can be at a good Division III program.
Right. Well, you guys are cream of the crop.
No, the other 7 teams in our league, we're trying to get there. But you hit the nail on the head. quality of life. Because the last 5 years since I got into coaching is the first time that I've been able to be home for Christmas, Thanksgiving, right, with my family. Because at the Division I level, you're playing a tournament in Thanksgiving, right?
I didn't see
Christmas
at home,
right?
Yes.
So when you talk about that quality of life of being able to, especially at this stage of your life, is be with your family. You get that peace of mind, right? You get that. Where, man, I was at airports Christmas Eve to go to LA, recruit, and land the next day. So I was running around and like it's hard. And I think a lot of people see the lights and the glory and the salary of being a Division I assistant coach or whatever, head coach, but it's hard. Listen, man, it's hard. It's not for everybody.
I remember reading from afar in the peripheries as Billy's time at UNH just came to an end and they were making their hire. And before they made their hire, some people were bouncing your name around and then after that they were hired. Well, to me, I was really just rolling my eyes. They were like, well, maybe Jean Bain will come back and assist it. And I'm like, guys, who says he'd even want to take the head coaching job at UN? Like, with what goes with that and living up in, no disrespect to Durham, but it's different than the Boston. And it's like, to me, it was just, I'm not asking you to comment on that process at all, but more like people don't realize the pros of the Division I setup, like that they're thinking that a low D1 assistant job might be more attractive or lucrative than running the show at a great D3 school.
Absolutely. That's because people don't know. A lot of people that not involved in the game or been around the game, they don't understand. They just see the lights, the glitz. They don't understand the behind the scenes work that goes into it. Like there's so many different things. It's not just, we talked about earlier, it's not just getting the best players, and there's so many different things that go into winning at that level that if you don't have all those, you can't win, no matter how good your players are. You need that support, facilities. Now you talk about NIL. I mean, it's hard. Where at my level, I'm having a chance to impact those kids' lives, more than I could at Division I level. Because now kids, man, they go to school A, they average 17. Hey, school B is going to give them more money to come. So you don't get to build that close-knit relationship with the kids. I feel like, that's changed at the Division I level. It's still a great game, but I have more of an impact at the guys in my level. It's more enjoyable. I get to teach them. I get to be around them. So I really enjoy that part of it because it's like we talked about earlier. It's not just about coaching basketball. I mean, you got to be a leader on the court, off the court, in the community. And I think to me, that's more impactful than, playing in front of 15,000 people in Rupp Arena. So that's just me.
Well, guys, both Bobby, Jean, thank you guys for an awesome conversation. I think it was really, really fantastic. One of the best ones we've had in here, I think.
This was awesome, man. Thank you for coming in.
I appreciate talking to you guys. This was terrific, man. This is a great way to start my day.
Well, thank you guys.
My man.